continue. May begin.
All right. Contents of the Gita summarized. So we are in the section of Nishkama Karma Yoga or Buddhi Yoga, detached work without reactions. We did this in our last class, and today we'll begin with the next section. 54 to 72nd verse, which will end today, this chapter, second chapter. I think we'll take 2 more classes, today's and next class, and we'll finish chapter 2. So Sthita Prajna, the qualities of a liberated soul, is what Arjun is going to start. He's going to start with asking a question, and we'll look at that. But first, a little recap. So let's look at, this is the 47th verse. We feel I have a responsibility to do my work and I have a right to the results. But Krishna says, Karmanne Vadikaraste, which means you can unmute and give the answer.
You have a right to perform your duty.
You have the right to do your work or your duty.
You have right for the result.
You have the rights.
So you have the right to the result. Then we might feel, but I worked. That's why the result came. Ma karma phala hetu, Krishna says.
Never consider
You're
yourself the
not the
cause of
only
result.
one to for the outcome of the cause of the results.
Yeah. Do not think yourself to be the cause of the result of your work, which means you're not the only cause. Then why should I work at all? Ma te sangostva karmani.
Do not
Never
be
be
attached.
attached.
Never get
to
into
not working.
inaction.
Do not be attached to not working. Wonderful. And we did this story in our last time. We watched a short video, a beautiful ad it was for insurance company. Okay, let's keep going. 50th verse, 2.50. And we'll recite, oh, actually, this is also the summary where Krishna gave another definition of yoga. Man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions, even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. And we understood how if we are charitable and we do good in this life, then in our next life, we get to go to heavenly planets. But that is not the goal of a yogi. He wants to connect with Krishna and make it his last life here, not to come back on this earth. Karmajam buddhi yukta hi, Krishna says in the next verse, by thus engaging in devotional service of the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the result of work, which means akarma in the material world, in which, in this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond the miseries. So Krishna says in 242 and 43, those who aim for heaven are, you can open your verses and see what the word is. Men with poor fund of knowledge. What does Krishna call them?
Krapana.
Those are misers.
Kirpana is the next one. Misers. First, those who aim for heaven.
Those who aim for
Those who
the
aim for
heaven. Okay.
Yeah, they are people with poor fund of knowledge, and Krishna uses a word for them in 42nd or 43rd verse.
Is it Durbalya? Just
You can open your Bhagavad Gita.
Those who aim for heaven are attached to the flowery words of the Vedas.
There is one word Krishna uses, and that word means poor fund of knowledge, people with poor fund of knowledge. It is 42b, 2.42b.
Avipashyate.
Avipashchitaha. And 2.51, Krishna says, those who aim for a place beyond miseries are exactly opposite to avipashchitaha, sages who are controllers of mind. Which is 251b again. 51b.
Is beyond miseries.
Anishina.
Manishina, wonderful. Sages who are controllers of mind. So man is mind. And Ish is controllers, right? Ishwar, controller. So people who can control their minds. And then we did 2.52, where Krishna said, when your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. Krishna uses the word kalilam, or a dense forest. We are not excited by promises of pleasures, even though they can come in the scriptures and they talk about better material pleasures in other planets. We understand it is all ordinary. And 53rd verse was the last verse we did in our last class. Fixed intelligence, Krishna says, when your mind is no longer disturbed by the flowery language of the Vedas, when it remains fixed in trance of self-realization, then you will have attained the divine consciousness. And we spoke about how we can be anchored in Krishna consciousness, then we would know material desires or heavenly pleasures can move us. And this is the summary of the 5 benefits of acting in Buddhi Yoga. 72nd, we'll come to that in our next class. So today's class, Arjun is starting to ask a question. In fact, in his question, there are 4 sub-questions. After so many verses, Krishna has spoken how many? So many verses, from all the way from 2.11 to 2.53, Krishna has been speaking. And now Arjuna has come up with a question. And we'll see every time these questions come, and they come again and again, they take the conversation forward to a higher, deeper level. So here Arjun is asking a question. He says, what are this person's symptoms? How does he speak? How does he sit? How does he walk? So let's look at the verse first. Sthita prajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava sthitadhi kim prabhasheta kimasita vrajeta kim. Somebody kindly unmute and read the translation, please.
Arjuna said, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak and what is his language? How does he sit and how does he walk?
Okay, so if we take these questions literally, if Arjun is asking, this person who is, you're talking about a sage and who is merged in transcendence, who's equipoised, who's at peace in dualities, such a person, how does he speak? How does he walk? How does he sit? What is his language? This does not mean literally, right? If we take it literally, it would mean some kind of a fashion lesson. But they both are charismatic people. Arjun and Krishna is the Supreme Lord himself. This is not what he's asking if we take the literal meaning. Also, language, their language at that time was Devanagari, Sanskrit. It's not that a person who's a transcendentalist, he speaks in some other language, right? His language will also be the same. So what is it that Arjun wants to ask when he's asking these? It's a very deep level, and let's look at what they mean. So when Arjun says ka bhasha, what are his general symptoms? Meaning, when I see such a person, how will I recognize him with his traits, with his characteristics, with his qualities? How is it that when I look at people around, internally we cannot look at person's mind, and they all look the same. Externally, they all look the same. So if I come across a person who's a sage, who's equipoised, who's in dualities, who's peaceful, who is transcendental, who is not affected by the flowery words of the Vedas, such a person, if I come across, how will I recognize him? So what are his general symptoms? And we look at all of these again in detail. We're just looking at what they mean right now. So Kim Prabhasheta, how does he speak? On receiving praise or blame, affection or hate, how are his mentality and words affected? So internally, how is he affected when somebody praises or somebody blames, criticizes? Internally, how does he feel? How does he take it? And how does he externally speak at those times? Kimasita, how does he sit? Meaning, what is his mentality when he restrains his senses from the sense objects? And Brajeta Kim, how does he walk? Meaning, how does he respond to sense objects? How does he engage his senses? Let's look at each of this one at a time. Ka bhasha, bhashyate iti bhasha. This is the definition of bhasha in Sanskrit, which means that which is used to describe or to comment. So what is used to describe something or someone is what bhasha is. So then ka bhasha will mean how is that person described, or what are the symptoms of such a realized person. Kim Prabhashita, how does he use his language? How does he respond to life? All the ups and downs in life internally, what's his mentality, and externally, how does he respond in his. Kimasita, how does he keep his senses restrained? So, all right, we have to not engage in sense objects too much. We have to restrain ourselves. So, this person, does he engage or not engage? And when he comes across these sense objects around him, how does he restrain his senses? How does he become inactive and not let them wander here and there, his senses? And then Brajeta Kim, how does the person move about? Does he use his senses at all? And how does he engage his senses? It's a beautiful question. And Krishna, how do we know this is what Arjun is asking? When he says, how does he sit? How does he walk? How does he talk? What is it that he really means? We understand the deeper level of the questions by reading or understanding Krishna's answer. When Krishna answers, then we know, okay, oh yes, this is what Arjun was asking when he asked about these four things. So in the purport, Prabhupada discusses the importance of the word symptom. There are symptoms of rich man, diseased man, learned man. Similarly, symptoms of a self-realized soul are addressed here. So a rich man, when he's, going somewhere, we see how he has, a whole, he might have bodyguards. His car must be really expensive one. So just by seeing, we can know, okay, this is a rich man. He has not said anything. Just by looking, we can perceive. And then Prabhupada says, similarly, for a self-realized soul, when we look at such a person, we can know by his symptoms, by his characteristics, that this is a sage. Most important symptom is how he speaks. Speech is the most important quality of a man. That's why it is very important, whatever we speak, whatever comes out of our mouth, we should think 10 times before speaking. Immediate symptom of a Krishna conscious man, he speaks only of Krishna or matters relating to Krishna. This is what Prabhupada is mentioning in the book. The symptoms, how does he reveal his position? Speak, what is his language? How does he react to actions of others? And sit mentality when his senses are withdrawn from sense objects. How is he situated? Then how does he walk? Engage his senses. And the examples are given from the parampara, how our Goswamis, what were their symptoms? Just by seeing them, people were becoming devotees, seeing the peace and how they were connected with Krishna. People were getting so influenced, and also the way they spoke, the way they controlled their senses, the way they reacted when there was, people praising them or people criticizing them, and the way they engaged when sense objects were around them. All right, so first question, what are his symptoms? And Krishna addresses or answers this in one verse, 2.55. Let's look at the verse. I'll open my Bhagavad Gita and read from the 2.55. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Partha Manogatan Atmani Evatmana Tushtaha Stita Prajnas Tatochate. Somebody can read the translation.
The
The
blessed
blessed
Lord said, O Parth, when a man gives up all varieties of sense desire, which arise from mental concoctions, and when his mind finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. Hare
Okay,
Krishna.
thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. So, Another point that I wanted to bring up was that why is Arjun asking these questions? So he's still thinking whether I should fight or not. So Krishna has spoken so many verses. He started from telling Arjuna how you're not the body or the soul. Then he came to a level where 2.37, you do your work, look at profit and gain. You're getting the kingdom if you fight and win. Or if you lose, you're going to go to heavenly planets and enjoy there. Then he takes the conversation higher, saying, Sukha Dukhe Same Kritva 2.38, be equipoised in dualities. Then he goes further. How does this person who's Nishkami, how does he act? So all these, he's bringing a conversation to such a high level, giving so much information. Then Nishkama Karma Yogi, what is his mentality, right? He's equipoised all the time. He's peaceful. So now Arjun wants to know, does Krishna want me to become like that person? And if I become like that person, will I be fighting or not fighting? Because Krishna is speaking about be peaceful, be detached, right? So should I act or not act? Will such an equipoised person, such a prajna pratishtita, so the word Arjun has used in his question, sthita prajnasya ka bhasha. This person who's sthita prajna means who is situated in, uh, who is equipoised, who is situated in intelligence, who does not get bewildered when his circumstances or his atmosphere changes around him. So does such a person fight or not? And if you want me to become like him, should I be fighting or not fighting? This is his background. That's why he wants to know more about this person. So there are materialists and there are spiritualists. So we are all looking for happiness. Even the spiritualist is looking for happiness, but he's looking for happiness in Krishna's pleasure, not his own pleasure. But the materialist is looking for happiness in his own senses. How can I satisfy my own senses? So it is very interesting. What is rejected is not the actions, but the desires. All desires born of the mind are rejected, and which are material desires born of the mind, but there are spiritual desires born of the soul. Because the mind is filled with conditionings, there are 6 anarthas. There's lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, and illusion. All these are there within which are like coverings on our soul. And that's why we are in this material world under the 3 modes and we act in a certain way. But then there are spiritual desires also. Material desires, with Prabhupada's example only, we can see how he had such wonderful spiritual desires. When we come to US, we have so many desires, right? A green card, better position in job, better salary, uh, better quality of assets, or whatever you can think about. Those are all material desires. And Prabhupada came to the West with spiritual desires. And what were his desires? To open temples, right? To preach about Krishna, to distribute books, to distribute prasadam, and so much more, right? So these are spiritual desires need to be cultivated, and material desires need to be subdued or to be controlled, or we can try to spiritualize even our material desires. So the mind has 6 anarthas with material desires, where material desires are born and which are sources of bondage. But when rejecting the outer desires or these material desires, what happens? The mind experiences purification. Even if it is one desire, even if you love eating gulab jamun, it is a material desire. Okay, have one, which is prasadam, but then control yourself. When we control ourselves, we experience purification within. The mind becomes silent. Otherwise, the mind, if we keep putting in the fuel, the mind keeps shouting and asking for more. But if we curb even one material desire, we'll experience the peace, the mind will become silent, the consciousness is focused then more on the inner reality, which is the soul. And then one goes deeper towards higher fulfillment. Then one realizes I'm a part of Krishna and experiences supreme satisfaction and bliss. So this is a practical way when the mind is curbed and we can convert the material desires to spiritual desires. Deepa Mataji, you have a question.
Mataji, in this context, I would like to know a little bit more about what is the difference between mind and intelligence, because in my mind, they're both kind of the same thing. So I know that there is a distinction. So if you could please distinguish that.
So mind is a storehouse of, just think of it as a storehouse. Whatever, for example, today, some knowledge that we're getting, we put that is going in the mind. Then you go to a general store, you wanted to do some grocery. So you go into, for example, you wanted a toothpaste, it is finished. So you look at so many varieties. When I came to US first time, I went to a grocery store. I came back home, my eyes were red, literally, looking at so many kinds of even for a toothpaste, there's so many varieties. Then you look at the ingredients. You look at how are they different? Which one should I choose? It's not just for that, it's for each and everything. So much variety, right? So all that is information you're putting in your storehouse of mind. The mind stores all this information. But within next time you go to the general store, when your toothpaste is finished, you already have that information. Now you use your intelligence uh, to choose which one you want, right? So mind stores the information, intelligence makes decisions based on that memory from the mind. Yeah, a simple definition.
But the intelligence will be based on what's in the mind, right? It can only act upon what is already there in the mind.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a storehouse, but we can develop spiritual intelligence also. That will come from the soul. That is.
So when you say you should not listen to your mind and you should like shut down the desires or things like that, the intelligence has to do
Takes
that.
over. Yeah, intelligence should take. And we'll come to another example in our class where we talk about how there's a chariot and there are horses, right? So horses are like senses, and the mind is like the reins of the horses. And the person who's sitting, who's the charioteer, he's the intelligence, and you're sitting behind. So the intelligence should control the mind. It should not be other way. The mind should not be controlling the intelligence. No, so the senses begin, right? I really want the gulab jamun, go down and open the pantry or the refrigerator and eat it, because the tongue is screaming and shouting because the taste is there. And the mind knows there is, you've experienced before. Mind is a storehouse, remember. You've experienced the taste before. It's really nice. So the mind goes along with the senses. But the intelligence knows that the doctor has stopped you from eating so much sweet. So just stop. It's okay. I mean, the taste, Krishna is going to talk about all of this. All these verses are coming up. They're beautiful verses, how a person can control the senses with the help of intelligence, and all that is coming up. So yeah, but basic is mind stores and intelligence then decides upon all that information and makes choices. Yes, Parmeshwar.
Mataji, just to similar, I just heard in a lecture by Sri Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, similar. He had given an analogy of if you're in your house and there's a power outage, and it's dark, and there's a knock on the door, and the first thing you will do is you will see from the peephole or put a light on or a flashlight and see who is it, or ask some questions before entertaining that person inside. So he said that knock on the door is like a thought or a desire on your mind. And the intelligence is you asking who is it and is it really relevant? because if you don't have that intelligence or that control, then you would just entertain everybody, and it's dark and you'll open the door for everyone. And then some people would be the bad thoughts or material desires. So he said that knock on the door is a desire that keeps coming onto your mind. And the intelligence is the check that is this relevant or not. And then I'll be able to entertain that person. So he gave an analogy.
Such a beautiful analogy. Thank you so much for sharing. Chaitanya
Mataji.
Charan Prabhu is amazing. He has
Yeah.
such wonderful. Thank you so much. Yes. Okay, so what are the general symptoms of a Sthita Prajna Purush? How does he reveal his position? Krishna answers, the self-realized soul has renounced all tinges of sense gratification by finding pleasure in himself, finding pleasure within. So these are the 6 Goswamis. Just a small video of all the 6 Goswamis. We'll look at that. Right, so we come to the next verse, which is 2.56. And the second question Arjun asked was, how does he speak? And Krishna answers in 56th and 57th verse. So when we spoke about understanding the question, how does he speak? We spoke of 2 levels, right? Internally, how does he experience when somebody blames him or somebody praises him? That's his internal reaction. How does he feel, or what are his emotions? What is his mentality? And 57th is, how does he outwardly speak, or externally? How does he speak? So 2.56 verse, let's recite it. Dukheshvanu dvignamanaha sukheshu vigataspраha vitaraga bhaya krodhaha stitadhir muni uchyate.
One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elevated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind.
So one who is not disturbed in the mind. So whether somebody's praising, or there are miseries, or there is happiness, there's no elation in happiness. So he's equipoised, and he's not disturbed in the mind with these ups and downs around him. And he's free from attachment, fear, and anger. Is called a sage of steady mind. So Krishna uses the word muni, sthita dhir muni uchate. It means the same thing. Arjun asked the sthita pragnasya ka bhasha, right? And Krishna is using this word sthita dhir. It's the same thing. Meaning is the same. A sage who's using his intelligence, and he's equipoised, and he's free from dualities. Krishna is describing the broad mental disposition of a Sthitadhir and his mental response to dualities over here. So we see graphic example is in a tennis match. If you see a person has won, you can see the reaction, right? It's a graphic example of how, when there is victory or when there is happiness, how does a person react? And then when one loses, he's dejected, and the reaction is it's really opposite. There can be anger also there. Our emotional reactions depend on what we take seriously, and this is really important. In our day-to-day life, right? Practically, we can see whatever disturbs us so much and what we take so seriously. It is what we take so seriously in life. That is where our emotional responses depend on. If it doesn't matter to us too much, we will not be emotionally so attached, and then our reaction is completely different versus a person who is so much emotionally, he reacts so emotionally. It shows how seriously he's taking that particular thing in his life. So it's very important how we have to be grounded in our spirituality so that we're not emotionally entangled and attached, and our emotion and our reactions don't come up about like waves with every up and down in our life. When one understands that there is a higher dimension to life that is far more meaningful and fulfilling than outer material life, for such a sage, there is no emotional entanglement, and that's why he can stay detached, indifferent, and unaffected. And that is a Muni who's a deep thinker. That is the definition of Muni. He's a deep thinker. He's not like somebody very shallow. A shallow person will have reactions with anger spurts and with, joyous spurts. But a Muni who is intelligent, who is a deep thinker, will be detached and unaffected by these ups and downs. So the Sthita Dhir Muni, who has understood the ultimate substantial principle, which is Krishna ultimately. Again, till now, Krishna has not introduced himself, but Prabhupada, in every purport, he brings up Krishna consciousness and how we can be so strongly connected with Krishna. So a person who's understood that the reality, the highest reality and ultimate substantial principle is Krishna, he's so strongly spiritually connected and experiencing fulfillment and enrichment at the spiritual level that whatever happens at material level is not so consequential, and therefore he is not affected in dualities. We all go through, because we're in this material body and we are in, grasta ashram. We do go for work, most of us. We do have a family with relatives and friends, and things happen every day at the material level. And we can understand what is the mentality of a person who is a Muni, who is fixed in his consciousness. He will not be disturbed in his mentality. And then next verse, Krishna will talk about how he speaks externally also. In his words, how does he react? So it's very important we understand all these and bring about these principles in our daily life also. That is the purpose why we are doing this course. It's not just to pass the exams and get the certificate. It is to utilize these principles in our life and go deeper in our understanding of Krishna consciousness. 57th verse, recited. Ya sarvatra na sambhinehas tat prapya subhashubham Nabhinandanti nadveshti tasya prajna pratishtita. Again, tasya prajna pratishtita. That person is sthita dhir or prajna pratishtita, equipped with or fixed in intelligence. So let's have somebody read the translation, please.
In the
material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. So in this material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain. In his speech now, Krishna is saying he neither praises nor despises in his speech. He's firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. When we become disturbed by our something that happens in day-to-day world, right? It comes in our speech. And people around us who are not in Krishna consciousness, we have seen they come up with these words saying, oh, you chant Krishna's names and this is how you react. This has happened and people have spoken about this so many times. Is this how your mentality is? Is this how you speak? You chant Krishna's names, so you should be different from others. How can we different? Krishna is teaching us how to be different from others. We want to be fixed in our Krishna consciousness. We want to show people by our example. Coming to Krishna consciousness is a wonderful thing. It is not that there is a change, but it is a positive change. It is a change where our intelligence is fixed in higher principles of life. So we have to lead a purposeful life. A higher purpose in life is not become emotionless, but to not let emotions dominate or misdirect us. succumbing to such emotions whenever we talk to people, that is all we talk about, right? For example, there is a little fight at home. You're speaking to your friend or some other relatives, and on the phone, you keep talking about, oh, she or he did this to me, and this is not how they should behave. I get so disturbed. This is day to day happening. We are doing such things. If we were
everybody.
chanting, Hare Krishna Prabhu, can you hear us? Can everybody else hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
Mataji.
Mataji.
Yeah,
Now it is.
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we were talking about how in our daily experiences, what we experience daily in our material world, in our material life, when somebody says something or there is a, a argument with somebody or something which is not in our favor, we get so disturbed that that is what is in our mind all the time, and that is what we speak with others. We waste their time, we waste our time just talking about how disturbed we are. So we have to go a little deeper, a little higher, not letting these emotions dominate or misdirect us. How are they misdirecting us? Because we're losing all those precious moments in just discussing what is material and not going, we could have used those moments in studying a little bit or chanting a little more, just thinking about Krishna. We can use those moments, each moment of our life, beautifully with putting value in each moment of our life. So purposeful life with highest purpose in life is, later Krishna speaks about bhakti and spiritual emotions in connection with him, which are desirable because they make the soul come alive. The material emotions make the soul degrade more and more and get more and more entangled in matter. But spiritual emotions, they make the soul come alive and go further up in the transcendental, in the spiritual journey. So we focus, this is really important. Let's have somebody read this a little slowly so we understand what it is. Go ahead, somebody, unmute.
We focus on not what is inconsequential, but what is consequential. Our service to Krishna.
So let's talk about 1 minute, Mataji. Let's talk about this a little bit. We just spoke about how things in the material world are inconsequential, right? Whatever happens, some disagreement is there. It is very inconsequential compared to all the time that we can utilize in Krishna consciousness, right? This we all understand. So we focus not on what is inconsequential, but what is consequential, our service to Krishna. Next. Yes, Mataji.
Whether I get auspicious results or inauspicious results, that fulfillment that I get by serving Krishna is available no matter what.
So whatever has happened, whatever disagreement or discord or that has made us a little, shaky, let's not concentrate on what is that which is inconsequential, but what is of value. So what is of value is our service to Krishna, where we can get fulfillment, and that is available no matter what is going on in our material world, material life. So we focus not on what is inconsequential, but what is consequential, and we focus all our energy there. Then there'll be a deeper level of fulfillment. Yes, Mataji, next.
That way, concentration is not on staying unaffected, but it is on staying focused on the path of transcendence.
Wonderful. So we may artificially, okay, I don't want to be disturbed. Okay, this thing has happened, but I know it's material. I don't want to get into it too much. I don't want to think about it. That is one level. But higher level is when we serve Krishna even in those situations, so that our focus is not on concentrate, not on staying unaffected by those circumstances, but we stay focused on what is higher, on what is deeper, on what is pure and the love and the service of Krishna. Then we can stay unaffected very nicely. Otherwise, it's going to be a struggle every time we go through such situations. So the second question, Kim Prabhashita, how does he speak? Krishna says, What does that mean? His mentality and his words affected by the affection, equanimity, or anger of others. And Krishna answers, he's in 56. He's not disturbed in the mind in suffering and elated in happiness. He's free from attachment, fear, and anger. He neither praises good nor despises evil. Right. Let's going. Okay, there's a story of King Ambarish Maharaj. In 2 minutes, if somebody can talk about this story. We have 2 minutes. We don't want to get into detail what happened to him and how he reacted in that situation.
Hare Krishna. Ambarish Maharaj was a devotee who was the typical example for this Navada Bhakti. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam. He was the master of all these 9 devotional services. And he was tolerant. He had got all the qualities of a devotee. Enough, Mataji? Or I should expand?
Yes, Prabhu. Okay, so I have these pictures. Let me show you. So one day he had kept a fast, and this fast was Ekadashi fast, but he kept it for a whole year. And the time came when he wanted to break the fast. At that time, Durvasa Muni came. And he wanted to also, he was so happy seeing the sage, and he said, please, he welcomed him. Let's have our, I was going to do par and I was going to break the fast, so we'll have together our feast. So the sage says, but I need to take a bath. And the sage goes away to take a bath. He said, when I come back, we'll have together. Now the time was passing away for the king to break his fast. There's a certain time period where you need to break your fast, and that was going to pass. So one of the priests, here we see him, the sage taking a bath, and one of the priests, he said, you have to break your fast, otherwise it won't be of any purpose. So but the king says, I have to wait for the sage to come back. But the priest says, you can have just a drop of water. It is breaking the fast and not breaking the fast also. So when he is drinking this little bit of water in his palm, at that time the sage comes back and he gets so upset that this is how you treat a reverential guest. This is how you behave. And he wants to kill the king for this little bit. It wasn't even an offense. So he breaks one of his hair from his head and he throws it on the ground, and this huge demon appears. And he tells the demon, go kill the king. And what is the reaction of the king? We're talking about dualities, right? When somebody praises or somebody chastises, here it's not just in words. He wants to kill the king. So what is his reaction? He just stands there with his hands folded. He doesn't do anything. His soldiers, in fact, go ahead to kill the demon, but he stops them. It's okay, just stop. So what happens? Sudarshan Chakra of Krishna comes to protect him. And then it goes after the demon to kill him. Kills the demon, then it comes after the Muni who wanted to kill the devotee, Krishna. And he's running and running. First he goes to Lord Brahma, please save me. Brahma says, I cannot save you. Then he goes, I'm going in fast forward. So then he goes to Lord Shiva. Shiva says, I also cannot save you. Go to Lord Vishnu. And then he goes to Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu says, you have this is an offense. You have created an offense against my devotee. Even I cannot help you. You have to go ask for forgiveness from my devotee. That's why we talk about how offensive it is. Krishna will not take offense against his devotees, whether it is verbal or even in our mind, and then verbal, or if it is in our deeds, in our speech or in our deeds. Krishna does not take it, and he also cannot help it. So he says, you have to go back and ask for forgiveness from King Ambarish. When he comes back, ask for forgiveness from him, and then the chakra goes away. So we can learn so many other lessons from that story, but we are talking about here why we brought this story, because we're talking about how a person in his speech and his mentality, he reacts to certain situations. Even if they're such adverse situations, such a pure devotee will not get entangled by using bad language or reacting even in his mentality. So let's go to the next verse, which is the 58th verse. Okay, so the third question, how does he sit? Meaning, how does he control his senses? So it goes all the way from 58th to 61st verse. And let's look at the 58th verse. Yada samharate chayam kurmo anganiva sarvashaha indriyani indriyarthebhyas tasya prajna pratishtita. You can read the translation. Who has not read?
One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness.
The one who is able to withdraw his senses from the sense objects, as the tortoise draws, so it's not over here, but it's in the purport, as the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell, is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. So see, we've seen a tortoise, right? I've never seen it withdraw its limbs inside, but this is how he looks like on the screen. You can see when it draws its limbs inside, you can just see the shell outside. So what is the time he withdraws the limbs within him, within itself? It's when it sees danger around it, right? So it's a solid defense. If it sees danger, it'll quickly withdraw all its limbs and go inside the shell to be safe inside them. So Krishna is saying, one who's able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, just like a tortoise, kurma, he says, is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. We go to the mall, we look at so many things. Oh, wow, this is a new jacket. I've never seen it before. Let me buy it and enjoy wearing it. Next day we go to the mall. Now there's another new thing. Let me enjoy it. Krishna is saying, when the sense objects come around you, you control yourself, withdraw the senses inside, seeing the sense objects as dangers. These are dangerous for us. And why are they dangerous for us? Because they take our consciousness away from the higher purpose in life. If we are always entangled in matter, then it keeps our consciousness entangled in matter only. So indriyani indriyartebhyas means the purpose or the value of the senses is to look for sense objects. That's why we have eyes and we have the nose, we have the lips, or the sense of taste, which is tongue, we have sight. It is to look for sense objects around us. We might say Krishna has given these sense objects, but tasya prajna pratishtita, that person is well situated in intelligence, who similarly deals with the senses and sense objects just like a kurma or a tortoise does. When the predator may be around, could be in the vicinity, but cannot harm the tortoise. Similarly, the alluring sense objects may be around us, but they can't affect us, they can't tempt us, distract us, or threaten us. We minimize the interaction with the sense with the sense objects by drawing our consciousness inward. We cannot physically bring our senses inside just like a tortoise does. But what Krishna means is take your consciousness inside. Don't get enamored by the sense objects around you. Be fixed in your consciousness. Pull it inwards to a higher reality, to the Supreme Soul. So just like a tortoise does, and stay focused even among situations which are distracting or tempting. Now, distracting can be not just the sense objects, but situations can be distracting where somebody says something to us and we get disturbed. Those are also distracting situations. And we have to curb our senses by pulling them inwards. That this is inconsequential. What is consequential is my surrender to Krishna, my focus on Krishna. And then next was, there's a link, but we can see that someone who's sick, he's also controlling his senses, right? He's not eating. So versus when he was healthy, he was going about indulging in all those sense objects. Or a person who's lazy, or a person who's fasting, also restrain his senses. So how can this be outstanding quality of Asita Prajna? Let's see what Krishna says next, which is 5:29. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasapapyasya param drishtva nivartate. Somebody read the translation.
The embodied
Though the
soul.
embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste is fixed in consciousness.
So, thank you, Mataji. So a person may be restricted from sense enjoyment. He could be sick, he could be lazy, he could be fasting. So what is the difference between such people and a Prajna Pratishthita Purush? Krishna says, the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste remains. But that person who's seizing that engagement by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. So Vishaya Vinivartante means sense objects are practiced to be restrained from. Vinivartante is you restraining from the Vishaya or the sense objects. Niraharasya Dehina, embodied soul feels I'm starving. Nirahar means I'm not eating anything. Ahar is the food stuff and he's not eating. So embodied soul feels I'm starving or fasting or deprived. Now this is not just regarding the food stuff. I don't want to look at those things because they enamor me so much and they take my mind away from maybe a video game. I get into it and I waste so much time. So I want to keep my senses away from playing that video game. So pull it inward. But still the taste is there. I want to indulge. So embodied soul feels I'm starving or I'm fasting or I'm deprived of that sense object. Rasa Varjam, still he decides I will not take it. Rasyopasya means api is certainly, and rasa is that taste which is there. And asya, it is still, it remains. So, but the taste for enjoying that sense object still remains. And what is the solution? Krishna gives in 59D. Param drishtva nivartate. Higher sight. Drishtva is to see. And Srila Prabhupada translates it as higher taste. Param Drishtva is a higher taste. What is the higher taste? Ultimately, it is Krishna. Drishtva also means to understand. Sometimes somebody is explaining something and we say, I see, I see. It's not actually I'm seeing, I'm understanding, correct? Have I lost everybody? Everybody is there, right?
Okay. Yes,
Mataji. Govindas is higher taste, Mataji.
Wonderful. So yeah, when I see
Govinda eating is still indulging, but we are only taking the permission.
It is prashadam. So yeah, higher taste. So when we say I see,
Mataji, basically, when we are a beggar is fasting because he is not having anything to eat. But when we are doing Ekadashi, we have things available to us, but for the pleasure of Krishna, we are doing this Ekadashi fast.
Perfect. Yeah, that is the higher sight. We have a higher understanding that we're doing it for the pleasure of Krishna. So Drishta also means to understand or higher perception, which is to see reality of the soul, and ultimately it is Krishna for him. The senses are so strong that they can suppress the knowledge. Let's look at this verse. 260. Krishna says, Yatato Yapi kontasya purushasya vipashchitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manaha. Let's see the translation. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who's endeavoring to control them. And we've seen this. When something happens, I get angry. I try to control myself. I don't want to use bad words, but then I indulge, and I cannot control at that time. So a person who's intelligent, who knows it is not right, still the senses are so strong and impetuous. They carry away the mind, or they forcibly carry away the mind of a person who can discriminate. So yatato means who is endeavoring to control his senses. Purushasya vipashita, one who's able to discriminate based on knowledge. But in spite of that, indriyani pramathini, these senses are wild and maddening and agitating. And haranti, they carry them away. That they carry away what? Prasabham mana. Prasabham in a great extent of force. What do they carry away? The mind is carried away. So here is the example of the chariot that we were talking about. If the 5 horses are like the senses in the chariot, and we want to go to a certain destination, but if we let the horses direct us, right? The horses in the chariot, they look at some wonderful grass on the other side and they go that way. Then we lose the destination. We don't reach the destination. So we cannot have the senses carry. The soul is the passenger sitting behind with the orange trousers. And the person holding the reins is the charioteer. He's the intelligence. And the reins, those black ropes, is the mind. So the intelligence needs to have a control over the mind. The mind should be controlling the horses or the senses, and the intelligence should be controlling the mind. If all that happens properly, then the passenger is peacefully sitting behind and goes and reaches the right destination. Yes, Deepa Mataji.
Mataji, one more question about false ego. So, like, again, I'm a little confused. What's the difference between false ego and mind? Because it's kind of, we're thinking of ourselves. So if you can just quickly,
Sure.
I know it's a little out of context.
No, that's okay. So mind, intelligence, and false ego is the subtle body that we have. The senses are the gross body that we can see and we can touch and feel and whatever. So, but the mind, intelligence, and false ego. So false ego comes when we all have the 6 anarthas, right? So coming in under the effect of the 6 anarthas and the modes of nature, we have the ego that I am the enjoyer, I am the proprietor, I want to do this, I want to enjoy my senses, I want to wear nice clothes, I want to look beautiful. This is all material and comes under material ego. But all the 3 can be spiritualized. We can have a spiritual ego that I am the servant of Krishna. I have that great position of being the servant of Krishna and I'm serving Krishna. With the intelligence, we can purify the intelligence, use our intelligence in creating newer ways to please Krishna, newer ways to distribute books, creative ways to cook and please Krishna. So intelligence can be used in that way. Mind can be also purified by not just storing material stuff, purifying it and meditating on Krishna. That's how the mind is purified. A wonderful question. Yes, Harini Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. They say don't follow your mind, follow your heart. So we have our soul in the heart, but the intelligence is in the mind. So how is intelligence and soul? Is there a connection at all?
Well, when we say follow the heart, basically for spiritualist, it does mean follow your soul. So the soul, which is Satchidananda, a part of Krishna, wants to please Krishna and be joyous in that state, right? So we use our intelligence to work in a way that we serve Krishna. That is the way. And now if you're talking about where intelligence is, because it's subtle, it's not placed in a certain area. We use our intelligence, it's coming about, spiritual intelligence is coming about from the soul, not the brain, which is, physically we can see the brain. So yeah, we won't get into the technicalities here. We'll keep going. I just I hopefully answered your basic question, Harini Mataji.
Yeah, yes, Mataji. Okay, yeah. So their spiritual intelligence comes from the soul and the connection.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And once the intelligence is spiritualized, yes, so you can decide using your spiritualized intelligence also. So that's how material nature entraps us through varieties of external forms, different appearances, makes us think, oh, I've never enjoyed this. A new cream in the market. It might have the same ingredients, just one thing here and there. Oh, I really want this because this will bring about the best perfection if I use this cream. Just a gross example. But it's the same thing in a different dress. So many things enamor us, right? And it's a beautiful verse from the Bhagavatam where Prahlad Maharaj says, Sri Prahlad Vacha, Matirna Krishne Paratasvatova Mito Pibatyate Grihavratanam Adanta Gobir Vishatam Nittamisram Puna Punashcharvita Charvananam. Prahlad Maharaj replied, because of the uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life make progress towards hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclination towards Krishna are never aroused either by instructions of others or by their own efforts or by combination of both. So without surrender to Krishna, the senses join the weak mind to respective sense objects. And mind control is the Sthita Prajna not only controls his senses, but also controls the mind and focuses on Krishna. And that is the real cause of control of the senses. The last verse for today, Tani Sarvan. This is beautiful verse where Krishna introduces himself for the first time in the Bhagavad Gita. Till now, he hasn't introduced himself. Here he's going to talk about how he's the focus of meditation, and we can do that. We can control our senses really nicely. And one of the verses that we'll try to memorize also. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparaha vashehi yasendriyani tasya prajna pratishtita. Somebody read the translation, please.
One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as the man of steady intelligence.
So what is that higher taste? Krishna just in the last verse, Krishna spoke about a higher taste. He is himself the higher taste. Somebody can read this, please.
Arjuna took the role of a student, and so Krishna became the teacher. But now Krishna, he is not just the teacher of sense control, but also the object of the controlled senses.
So beautifully how we can understand. And this is also from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. I heard this from him. Krishna is not just, he's teaching how to control the senses till now. But in this verse, he also became the object of the controlled senses. Mohan Prabhu, can you read this too, please?
Krishna, who's full of beauty, all knowledge, all fame, all strength, all wealth, all renunciation, embodies and personifies the culmination of all of our heart's attractions. Loving him and serving him brings greatest happiness. And what happens when we fix our consciousness on Krishna? Although there may be minds pulling, but with the little sense control that we have, we use it to fix our mind on Krishna, and then the senses become peaceful and joyful and satisfied.
So remember, Krishna spoke about niraharasya. When we try to curb the sense objects, we don't want to indulge in them, but there is a craving that remains. No, I really want it. This is how we can control the senses purposefully and in a satisfying way. Otherwise, we just say no, no, no. It becomes very dissatisfying. Seems like I'm starving myself. But if we can, we all have sense control. So using that little sense control at that time, especially when there is a pulling of the mind, no, I want this. At that time, use our sense control in thinking about Krishna, fixing on Krishna. He says, Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matpara. Make me the object of your meditation, not the cream, not the hair dye, not the gulab jamun, not your anger. Don't make that the object of your meditation. Make me the object of think about me and focus on me. Just in that moment, if we can do it, our senses become so joyous and peaceful. The third question came, Asita, how does he sit? Krishna answers him. The ninth verse, such a person remains fixed in transcendental consciousness by virtue of his higher taste for the service of Krishna. And here's another story of Haridas Thakur, how he could control his senses, right? Because he was fixed in thinking of Krishna even when the prostitute came. He wasn't enamored, he was just fixed. It wasn't a deprivation for him when he said no to her. It was his higher taste that he had. And that's how he could make the prostitute also a devotee, his disciple and a devotee of Krishna. So we could have watched